your best performance can be achieved quite young. But what you work for the rest of your career is actually in bettering your worst performance.
This is the Creative Voyage podcast, a long-form interview show with the mission to help creative professionals to level up. I'm your host, Mario De Picolzuane. I'm a creative professional myself, active in the fields of graphic design, art direction, and creative consulting. In this podcast, I present in-depth interviews with some of the world's most inspiring creative professionals, revealing the stories that shape their lives and careers, plus actionable strategies to help you take your mindset and skills to the next level. I invite you to join me on this journey. In this episode, I talk to Jonathan Chmelensky, a professional dancer. Jonathan Chmelensky is a Paris-born ballet dancer currently based in Copenhagen. As a ballet student, Jonathan traveled around the world to compete and perfect his skills, and the journey took him to train in Paris, New York City, and in Havana at the National Ballet School of Cuba. In 2007, at the age of 19, he was recruited to join the Royal Danish Ballet in Copenhagen and has been with the company ever since. In 2013, he was promoted to a soloist, and in 2018 to principal dancer, which is also his current title. As I've mentioned in one of my previous podcast episodes with contemporary dancer Fokiko Takase, I'm fascinated by dance and believe that it's one of the most holistic creative outlets. I find some of the principles which professional dancers have to adhere to incredibly inspiring, such as respect for their bodies and relentless routine, and directly applicable to any other creative pursuit. In that realm, Jonathan is no exception, so it was such a pleasure to explore these ideas with him. In this episode, we're going to listen to the highlights of the conversation I had with Jonathan in Copenhagen during the 3 days of design in May 2019. It is the last of the 3 interviews I had during that series, which was recorded in front of a live audience at the Odo, a hybrid space facilitating and celebrating human interaction, connection, and artistic expression. In our conversation, we cover topics such as the importance of hard work, challenges of being a professional dancer working today, the ways to keep being engaged with our craft, how to tackle the hard moments on our professional path, and much more. Jonathan was raised by a single mother who was working long shifts, so from time to time he was taken care of by his grandparents. Both former professional dancers, they were also considerably busy. They were teaching ballet. However, their jobs were more flexible to have a kid around, so as a child, Jonathan would often sit on the side during their classes.
My first memory is just these lines of little girls doing ballet and being corrected by my grandmother, being all standing in a line at the bar, and then me just sitting in the corner and just like bored to hell and just like watching what they were doing, because that was more distracting than just, there's so much you can do with like a toy or something. So then I would just watch, and my grandmother was very methodical about the way that she would place each little girl to the correct position, the correct form. And it's a little bit funny, one of my first memories is actually me just spontaneously, just like, I had seen that obviously many times, that reform, like, okay, it's stretching of the knee and positioning. And then one day, I don't know why, because again of boredom, I just like stood up and myself went to like fix the little girls who thought it was my grandmother. And then it was just like so stiff, and it was like, no, but it's not supposed to look like that. And my grandmother would fix every single girl individually. And maybe in my head, I think if I help her out, maybe we'll go home earlier or something like that.
By being an active child generally, and often present during those sessions, quite organically, Jonathan joined those classes and officially started his ballet training at the age of 12. Jonathan's creative journey began when he was very young, so I was curious to hear what advice he would give to his younger self and also to individuals who are just entering into the dance profession.
I mean, to be very honest, it's horrible to say. I don't know if I would do it again if I knew how hard it was.
Okay.
How much of an personal investment. I don't want to sound overly dramatic, but as you say, there's a lot of highs and lows, and not everybody has a stellar career. From the second they go in, it works for them, and it just, everything clicks. You meet the right person at the right moment, and yeah, all of a sudden you're there. For other people, it's a long marathon of highs and lows, of failures and denials and frustrations, and I'm happy I stick to it. But if it was to do it again, it's long. And even if the career of a ballet dancer is relatively short, it's a long journey. I love what I do. Don't get me wrong, and I love it every single bit, but not everybody has the star career you see in movies.
Yeah. And then kind of following down that path, there are young people who are starting and going into that profession and exploring that discipline and kind of probably seeing you or some other dancers and they're like, okay, I want to be there. Like, I want to do that. So like, do you have any advice that you would give to those people, to like young professionals?
I would say I just read the autobiography of a tennis player who said he's hit 2,500 balls a day since he's 5 years old. And that is because his father had calculated that if he does so, then he will have hit 1 million balls a year. And then by the time he was 15, he could turn professional because he could hit 15. And what I mean is, no matter what people say, if you put the hard bone work behind your art form or your craft, there is a moment that things will work, that things will click. And I think I was very stubborn like that. And it got me a long way. It was Andre Agassi, by the way, the autobiography. Sorry, I just skipped on it. Yeah. And just the sheer concept of master your discipline to the point where no matter if there's a personal interaction, a personal affinity between people, that these people can't deny the fact that you are masterful in what you do. Yeah. So that's my advice, to say just pure hard work, daily based, daily routine creates results.
As the author Neil Strauss put it, without commitment, you cannot have depth in anything, whether it's a relationship, a business, or a hobby. And I would add that the evidence of our commitments is our schedule, our habits and routines. As Jonathan already mentioned, there's a mountain of hard work behind his profession, so I wanted to hear how's that reflected in his day-to-day life.
The routine starts relatively early. Get in at 9 at work at the Royal Theatre in Kongsnytov in Copenhagen. Start the warm-up process. When you're young, when you're maybe in your 20s, early 20s, you can get away with basically what I say, murder. You can go straight into the studio, straight into rehearsal, just whack stuff out. With age, unfortunately, you learn through injuries or through other people's mistake at times that you need to warm up, get ready, really start your day slow so that your body has the time to warm up properly. So start at 9, 10 o'clock, morning training until 11:30, which is basically your, I wouldn't say any ballet girls training, but in a more advanced level like that, like bar training and then center that ends with jumps and turns. And then we start rehearsals that go until 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And then you come back at 8 for the performance. So you have 4-hour break. You come back at 8 for the performance. The performance starts at 8. So let's say you start getting ready at 6. So you have a 2-hour break there. I personally, because of the eating routine that you don't want to feel so, And 6, again, same thing, warm up, getting ready for the performance, mental state, take time. Everybody has their routine. Everybody's a little bit maniac. I know. The pencils needs to be kind of aligned properly. And if one doesn't move, then I need to do the whole thing again. I'm exaggerating, but there is some type of ritual that you install for yourself to put yourself into a state of calmness to perform. Then finish at 11 o'clock the show. Mm-hmm. Go home, get an extra meal in, and then wake up next morning, 7:30, same thing.
And how often is that? Is it like on a daily basis or is it like...
Well, performance days. We have a little bit over 100 performances a year at the Royal Theatre. So every third day it resembles like that. And every other day that's with other performance. We go until 4 or 6, depending on the day. And it's full on. We rotate performances. So what we rehearse during the day is not what we perform at night. We rehearse the program that comes after the one that we're performing at the moment. So we're continuously rotating, learning steps, rehearsing. That's a little bit the routine.
And then do you also go on like tours?
Yeah. My fixed position is here at the Royal Theatre. So that's where I'm associated with. But of course, there is this possibility of me traveling around and guesting. Okay. And that's on top of that schedule. So that's an extra load for me to do. And there's only so much I can actually do because of those parameters of having to perform and work on the daily at the Royal Theatre.
I mean, I really find that quite fascinating because you really have to like dedicate yourself 100% to where with some other creative professions, you can kind of wing it. I mean, when I do graphic design or art direction or something, you can be half sick or hangover or be tired. You can kind of get away with it or you probably won't like jeopardize like doing it tomorrow because you won't most probably get injured. You might influence the result because it's always better if you're ready and in your kind of best shape. And
I'm gonna say I'm a really hard friend to have. Like, and most of my friends, and some of them understand, some of them don't. Most of them do. I'm being harsh, but I'm not the friend that you can say, hey, let's go on a Thursday night, let's go and have a couple of drinks spontaneously. It's because it will take a toll on me and potentially take a toll on my career. God forbids, because I'm hangover, because I'm tired, because this and that, I happen the next day to like twist my foot by lack of awareness of my body. Then that's it. That's kind of the domino effect of everything that you slowly build up. Everything can go down. That's one of the sacrifices you get by working with your body as an instrument.
So that kind of brings me to a question of balance. In one way, it sounds like it's kind of hard to have a balance, but I assume that you kind of have to have some outlets or some ways to offset that and manage it to kind of keep sane in a way.
Absolutely.
So I'm curious, how do you approach that?
Well, we have 1 day a week where we're free. It's quite hard to like totally refresh your mind and by the end of the season, you're really exhausted. Like there's really not a lot left in you. Also I mean, it is, again, as you said, like a daily schedule, very active daily schedule, very taxing. So yeah, I take 2 months of traveling, basically. I take a month and a half of traveling and without dancing.
Okay.
Definitely a month without dancing.
Okay.
And then because then you do come back. I mean, first of all, you miss it. There's like, it's so much part of your DNA that it's like coffee in the morning. Like if you have coffee every day, as much as you might not like the taste of it, at some point you're like, okay, I function better if I have the morning coffee. It's the same thing a little bit here. All of a sudden your pains start appearing after a month of non-activity and you're like, okay, this is not going well.
Yeah.
So then you get into it. I always try to travel. The last place I traveled to is where I can train as well. Mm-hmm. So that I can do like a morning training, get back in shape and get going for the season that is coming up.
Okay.
But yeah, traveling, disconnecting, trying to a little bit live a more normal life. I don't, that sounds so obscenely, but no, just really having like a visiting family and really not trying to watch any ballet whatsoever. That's my way to cope with it. I'm not sure it's healthy, but I'm sure I should find a better mechanism, but that has worked so far.
At this point in our conversation, I've asked Jonathan to share what he thinks are the main challenges of being a professional dancer working today.
Dancing industry basically is entertainment at its core. Yeah. It is old school entertainment. And I think that there's just so much entertainment in the market nowadays. It's an art form that you need to take the time to appreciate and to learn. It's hard to just go and watch a ballet and just say, oh, that's my thing. It comes with like taste and, you can go and see a Swan Lake, but what about that new piece from Wayne McGregor that goes and it's much more obscure and is cool, but I'm not sure it's for me kind of thing. When there's so much more entertainment in the world with the phones, with the cinema, with everything, basically, that is much easier to the eye and much less restraining time-wise and economically. I mean, it is expensive to go to the theater. And that's one of also the big challenges of the Royal Theatre as an entity is, okay, how do we justify the people buy tickets for something?
And how do you're part of that industry. So like how can you or like other dancers kind of contribute to that?
Well, I'm a romantic in the sense that I do believe that the more we're going towards technology, the future and screens and distance, it's becoming more and more rare, this thing of the moment. Mm-hmm. Right now, like tonight we're having a performance, Camille Dame, which was created 40 years ago by a choreographer, John Neumeier. And we're all 60 dancers that are part of this production are going to go and create something, are going to perform this piece that's been choreographed. But this performance will be unique in the sense, at no other time will I be in the state that I am right now, performing and portraying this character. And so this type of magic of just gathering and you can watch it live, you know what I mean? It's not like, it has not 1 billion views on YouTube. It has 2,000 people watching in the audience. And you're part of that. You're part of this experience. I hope that the more we go in the future, the more there will be, and again, there's this connection of human interaction, that there will be put a price upon the moment, the mistakes. I mean, to that extent as well. Just, we're here. We're going to watch something that nobody else is watching.
One of the themes I explore through this podcast is growth. Even though it can be a painful process at times, I find it to be a crucial factor for achieving a sustainable satisfaction in both career and life. In one of his interviews, Jonathan said that the ballet has been a way for him to concentrate and focus his energy on improving himself, so it seems that he's successfully managing that part of his career and using his craft as a vessel to achieve that. I was interested in hearing what Jonathan is currently doing on that front.
Well, I try to involve myself more and more in creative processes. I try, as much as I am now teaching some of the older kids from the ballet school of the Royal Theatre, just to have that in my side pocket. To explore, movement, teaching young kids the craft, of course, but also slowly shifting towards the artistic side of ballet, not just the interpreter, but shifting. I've done some choreography, and that is something that I will for sure pursue more as the time goes by in the next couple of years.
And how do you go about kind of like, let's say, inspiration kind of outside your field? Like, is that, I'm sure that's like a big part of it.
Of course.
Just how you live your life. But are there like any other like sources which are not, let's say, particularly connected to dance or ballet, which have influenced you in a profound way?
I mean, painting a lot. Every time that I travel, I go to museums and try to discover not only the main pieces, but just like, again, this thing of being in the moment, of seeing it live. Like, it doesn't matter how much I zoom in, then all of a sudden it's there, and feeling the paint brushes on it. It's just so unique. And try to imagine what state of mind was that person, was the artist in when he got to be there. And as well, just talking with other professionals as well, just a professional in the art or design, or just hearing their background, what they're doing. And it's kind of almost, wow, there's just so many people not so many people in the world, but we were in a bubble at the ballet many times, and we don't realize how much there is, how many different, in every daily thing that you take for granted, there's just so much research and so much thought, and just having a little window in those worlds for me is always like very refreshing. And being in this space right now, I mean, all of a sudden you're like, wow, yeah, there's like a lot of thought behind this. I'm not the only person working really hard.
Hey friends, you're listening to the Creative Voyage podcast. We're in the middle of this episode, so it's time for a short break. If you like this podcast, I'm confident you're going to enjoy the Creative Voyage Monthly Edit, a newsletter for which every month I ask a different creative professional to curate 10 brief recommendations of cool things to inform and inspire, including books, articles, products, portfolios, podcasts, and more, and deliver it exclusively to your inbox. It's a newsletter curated by creatives for creatives. To sign up, visit creative.voyage/newsletter. Thanks everyone, let's get back to the show. By being the principal dancer at the Royal Danish Ballet in Copenhagen, I think it's fair to say Jonathan enjoys relative success and industry fame. As we've heard, that was built over the decades through hard work and a good share of ups and downs. I wanted to hear what are Jonathan's challenges at this point in his career.
Well, it's this idea that I've now done most of the big classics, the big roles, those roles that I've always wanted to do. Mm-hmm. And so no matter what I'm going to do, I'm just going to come back to those. And it's a little bit, I will never have the same type of excitement, perhaps, or the build up to like a big premiere. And when it's something that you've wanted all your life, all of a sudden saying, okay, but I've done that. Like, I will gladly do it again. That's not that, but it's just to say, okay, well, I kind of did check that box, and now I'm just going to come back and check it again.
Yeah.
This has been my main focus for like many, many years. And like I've eaten ballet, I've done everything. And then all of a sudden saying like, okay, I guess I just need to not repeat myself, but I'm just going to do that again. Instead of saying I'm working. It's like, again, I'm very inspired, but there is definitely a point where, again, you have touched all these dream points and try to come back with a fresh eye, a fresh mindset into these things, not saying to yourself, well, I've done that, so I know how it's going to go. I know the rodeo. going back to yourself and then finding that new 100% energy that you've had the first time.
Yeah.
That is something I can not feel upon myself, but that definitely will be a thing.
Let's talk a bit about kind of how you can express yourself as a creative, because it is a creative outlet, and depending on different disciplines, there's always like different best practices or different rules within each of those. And what I find fascinating with dance, but especially like a traditional dance as ballet, at least to me, it seems that there's like a lot of rules and it's like quite strict, and you're as a person in it like quite bound by a lot of different forces. So I'm curious, how can you express yourself and kind of be creative within that framework?
I'm now in the lucky position where I'm a principal dancer, which means I do have the title roles generally. So for me now, my way of interpreting a role, I'm asked to inject my persona into these roles. What is Jonathan Chmelensky interpretation of the role of Siegfried in Swan Lake? So I'm in this unique position where I have the freedom. I'm given the freedom to mix myself into the task. It's harder for the work of ensemble, and that's what's hard at times, such as the swans in Swan Lake. You can have such an aesthetic art form that you can have like 24 girls on with a white tutu just doing their own. It has to be very precise and that's the tough side of it. How do I personally? It's when the creative process with a choreographer that comes in the house will usually say to you, okay, so show me something. I want you to go this direction. And that's where all your background, your baggage, all your memories kind of come to you, and you kind of say, okay, so what do I think is cool? What do I think I look good in? There's a lot of parameters that are. And the first time you're confused, the first time you have no idea how to even start a movement, you freeze. You're just like, what do you mean?
Yeah,
it has happened. Everybody has gone through that phase of just like, so the choreographer just like, that's a little bit of choreographer's job. Okay, no, but I think like, what about a movement of your leg perhaps going this way, and he maybe initiates something? What would be, then I would like for the girl to finish like this. So how can we transfer? That's how, again, what I've seen and my experiences come in, and then I was like, oh yeah, wait, body memory of practice of past pieces that I've done. Okay, but there was this good moment where I could like twist and then just grab the girl's leg last second, and that just comes with experience and time. You learn, it's a subdivision of the craft of the dancer. That's that.
With like most creative professions, it's also important to kind of think about kind of what's next, what's coming. And we do live in more disruptive times. So there's always kind of, I think it's like a job of being a professional to kind of dedicate a part of your time to kind of think about, okay, what's going to happen potentially in 5 years or 10 years or 20 years? Like, is my profession even going to be around? And then if we talk about ballet in particular, you said like the career of a professional ballet dancer in itself is not that long. So I'm curious, like, how do you approach that, and what's kind of next for you, like potentially, or like what are some of your next steps?
I mean, as realistic as I can get, my main point of expertise is ballet. It's kind of the curse of it, the blessing and the curse. As a ballet dancer, you get into this profession very early, like by 19, you're a professional, that's it. Then you have to work. So it's kind of hard for me to say to myself, okay, I'm going to run this until I'm 40 and then I'm going to go and change. It's unrealistic thing. Who is going to hire a 40-year-old with no experience, anything? Who in their right mind would give it a chance? So, of course, there's a very, not only pragmatic, I love this profession and I love ballet and I love theater that will, of course, take me to continue within this artistic realm as specifically what it is. I have some ideas of what I'd like to do, but I need to have myself more. I'm still very focused on my career as a dancer, because I think I need to live this one all the way through to put at rest not my demons, but to put myself at rest.
And do you have any, it kind of ties into the question before about balance, do you have any other like specific hobbies or like some things that you're doing? I mean, because hobbies can usually be like an exit strategy for like...
Right. Not last summer, the summer before, actually. I took a job as a bartender.
Okay.
At Mikala, a bar in Victoria Gale. Because I was re-questioning my whole existence a little bit. I was kind of stuck a little bit mentally, professionally, and I was like, okay, I need to get out of here because this is about to not go well. The inspiration was like starting to get thin. And then I went out to apply for the job. And after some hesitation, I think they needed somebody to cover for the summer. And I went there, and I think I was a pretty good bartender. But it was more that thing where it was like, okay, well, there's a task to do. And I think I'm ballet dancers, because of our discipline, or we're just very good at like the functionality of it. It's just like, I'm going to do those 500 stickers on it, and I'm just going to do it as fast as possible. Like almost like it as a challenge.
Yeah.
And I think everybody around me was like, whoa, okay, there's a little bit. So yeah, I definitely do have this, and I will be able to catch up with all my friends and all these years where I couldn't attend a birthday party on a Wednesday, and I'll be the first one there.
Yeah.
But yes, absolutely. It will be a natural. I mean, it can go on forever at a certain level. I'm active physically all the time. I know that every other job is the same. Every other branch of people who love what they do, that the next project is in their mind. They brush their teeth. They think about that project. How can I better it? So I am very aware that I'm not special in that sense, that my job is in my lifestyle. I mean, as horrible as it may sound, as before, don't have much time for hobbies. And I am very aware of the unhealthiness of this, of the paradox of this, just like, okay, this kind of sounds like a ticking bomb. But I think the bomb would have exploded a long time ago if it wasn't because I'm okay with it. I'm okay that that's my lifestyle. That's my career, that's my lifestyle. And that with everything that it goes with it. Like, again, I always use that example. You wouldn't go on like the dark web with your computer if your job was on your computer. You know what I mean? Like, you wouldn't go and download any type of software and just say, I think it's gonna be fine. No, it's the same thing with like any type of other physical activities that's out there. You don't want to break anything, or rub yourself in bubble paper.
I mean, I think it is very inspiring.
Yeah, I mean, I enjoy good food. I do have a social life in that sense. And again, I'm inspired by anybody who's dedicated to the point where they're trying to perfect their art form to the best they can, and I get to enjoy that, and I put a big value in that.
As creatives, part of our craft is knowing what it takes to perform a good job and making sure we prepare for it well, in a way what chefs would call mise en place. However, even if we plan and prepare for quote-unquote everything, things still are not guaranteed to go well. As the famous quote by Mike Tyson goes, everybody has a plan until they get punched in the mouth. I believe those difficult moments and our responses to them is what separates an amateur from a professional. I was curious to hear how Jonathan manages those types of situations.
Well, actually, as a performer, at this point, I've discovered that your ultimate performance, your best performance, can be achieved quite young. By the time that you're a professional, maybe hired in a company even, I'm not exaggerating, but I'm putting it in wide terms. You can perform your best. You can have the best performance. But what you work for the rest of your career is actually embettering your worst performance. So what you get with experience is like, first of all, you learn how to deal with your mental state of the day. Okay, I'm shaky right now. Today has been a little bit of a off day. I didn't have my routine. Okay, so you learn how to do. The next thing is about, okay, I'm in pain with my shoulder today. So how am I going to deal with doing the task while not irritating this shoulder? Okay, my balance is really off today. So how do I, during the seconds that there is in between the steps, manage to correct that? And so like that, you actually diminish the distance between your best and your worst performance of the day. And that comes with experience. That comes with many shows. You say, okay, but that didn't work. Like you said, okay, well, I'm off by balance. I'm going to give even more energy, 100%, and just like throw myself into it, and it's going to work. And then you discover that's not going to work. Well, that's okay. Live and learn. Okay, next time. Okay, I'm just going to take a deep breath. I'm just going to pull my horses back, and then I'm going to just continue and let that past step just go in the background, and then move on to the next fresh. All right, that works. For me, it was really, again, that Andre Agassi was very revealing, because tennis is a very alone sport. You're very much on your own and somehow a ballet dancer during a long performance is a little bit like a tennis player, is only left by himself, and the adversary is the performance. So how do you conquer that performance a little bit? I mean, again, of course, experience, but also just diligence, coming with a plan. Worst case scenario, what is my best worst performance I'm going to be able to do is, and rehearse for that.
Yeah.
Rehearse, this is my, not rock bottom, because it's still, by that level, you know how to do a really correct job. The untrained eye would not see the difference. Yeah. You yourself know it. Maybe some of your colleagues that are watching know, but the naked eye wouldn't see it. And just like rehearse that no matter day in, day out, you get that same result that you want to have. That's my way of coping with that.
We've come to the last topic I've discussed with Jonathan. As with previous guests, I've asked him to share 3 pieces of advice based on what he learned so far on his professional journey.
One would definitely be take away the personal aspect of other people's talent, other people's good things. Because if he's your competitor of some type, of some form, then one has a tendency of maybe, well, that's so him. And I could imagine that could be the same for anything. Oh, that's just so typical. But maybe take away this thing of being like, am I envious? And then just see where lies his qualities. But that he really does. And take that, understand that, and maybe apply that to yourself. But he does, for instance, as a dancer, you could say by that, okay, I don't have an arch nemesis, but let's say I had an arch nemesis and say like, well, okay, I just can't stand that guy. But if I'm really honest, I can see that he's capable of like, I don't know, changing characters or portraying that type of character so well and so heartfelt. Then take that.
Yeah.
Take that and include it to yourself and to your work and say, okay, well, maybe that's good for me to try to do that without copying him, but maybe go in that direction.
Yeah.
Definitely the other thing is that routine. Have yourself a routine definitely is one of the main things of success for me. And that's what I've based a lot of my career on, is really just like this repetition, this idea of accepting the repetition, accepting the, not boring, but accepting the ritual aspect and embracing it. Yeah. And third, giving your best every day. But how can I be my best today? How can I really knock it out of the park?
Yeah. Amazing. I love that. Thank you.
Pleasure is mine. Thank you so much for coming, everybody.
Hey everyone, that's it for this episode. I hope you find it useful, and if you like this podcast, tell a friend. I want to thank Jonathan for coming onto the show during the special live recording of the podcast at the Odo in Copenhagen. Jonathan is a walking testament to the value of hard work, and it is inspiring to see how he coupled that with his talent to achieve remarkable results. I'm grateful for the stories and honest insights he shared with me. Links to Jonathan's work, as well as to some other things mentioned during the conversation, can be found in the show notes at creative.voyage/podcast. Also, you can follow @creative.voyage on Instagram, join the monthly edit newsletter at creative.voyage/newsletter, and if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe. Until next time, my friends, take care.